Welcome, everybody, to another episode. Thanks for coming to attend on how outsourcing and AI works for the small to medium business community. And excited to have Chris Medhurst on, a guest today, COO over at District Taco, phenomenal franchise brand, been super successful and growing. So thanks for being with me today. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So as always, I like to kick off right at the beginning so all of our listeners get something they kind of quickly take away. I always ask my guests and myself to kind of share just the latest. We're always kind of turn over rocks to the latest tool or app or podcast or resource. And so we'll kind of both share right here at the beginning to kind of kick off, something we've heard lately that can kind of maybe add value. So I'll turn to you, Chris. Kind of want to share any software or podcast or book you've read lately that's had a good impact for you?
Yeah, I think probably recommend this tool that we started using called Superset. It's an open source software that came out of like Airbnb and Lyft. We use it to help us build our own dashboard and just a whole bunch of other software tools that we've been working on for a couple of years. So that's been really helpful to get information out to the rest of the organization and make sure everybody's on the same page and looking at the same kind of KPIs to track their performance.
So it's Superset, and so it's kind of like a BI type of tool, like a sort of kind of aggregating kind of data and metrics, kind of like a Looker Studio or a Power BI.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. And is there any books or podcasts you've read in the most recent kind of time frame that's been impactful for you?
Yeah, one of my favorite podcasts that I just heard about probably a couple months ago is called Invest Like the Best.
Nice.
Kind of a corny title, but I just the quality of guests that they have on there is always shocking to me. They have every VC PE firm that you can think of. There's a partner from Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Bessemer, Apollo, everybody, and they've also had the CEO and founder of Shopify, Robinhood, MongoDB, Home Depot. It's just a crazy level of quality in terms of the guests they have. So really enjoyed that.
Awesome. I've heard a couple people mention that one. That sounds like it'd be, and I haven't had a chance. I'll definitely engage in it. And it's especially these podcasts that can land these big guests, because I actually listened to one, which I'll share as part of my share as well. That was really helpful. Well, thank you. And so on my end, I'll share. So actually I'm in EO and YPO is actually, Chris and I both met. We're both in YPO, and I came back from my forum earlier today. And a lot of you have heard of Gamma. So Gamma kind of does, it'll automatically do presentations for you. And so, as all these AI tools continue to just get better and better every single day. And he was showing me a demo. It was phenomenal. So Gamma, GAMMA.app. But just, you can go in and just, describe what you're looking for, want created. You can give it kind of your, he literally just uploaded his company like brand book, like colors, how they like bullet points, how they like so forth. Then just gave it instruction and created, phenomenal full presentation deck, social media posts, content. So Gamma.app, if you haven't tried that one out in a while, go check it out. And latest podcast I've been diving into, actually it's called Business School, that is by Sharon Shrivastava, and phenomenal guy. He actually just took over, actually from Atlanta. I got to know him through some circles here, but actually became president of acquisition.com, Alex Hormozy's operation, and just a really, really high takeaway value podcast called Business School with Sharon Shrivastava. And we'll put that in the show notes so you guys can check out. So, well, awesome. Hope those are quick wins for you guys to kind of kick off. And so want to then jump in and do a little intro here with Chris to kind of give his background. As I shared, kind of got connected through YPO, President's Organization. Spoke for one of the chapters, virtually. I'm a member of the Atlanta chapter here, and got a chance to explore the path of outsourcing and virtual assistants as they've been kind of growing. And I'll just let Chris kind of share what some of their challenges. And in the COO role, every problem that comes across his desk when it comes to scale or operations or infrastructure. And then a lot of times marketing and sales related can kind of intersect in that world. But I'll turn to Chris, got a little bit of background and kind of where they were struggling, some of the challenges that they've been kind of growing, expanding, and what kind of led to us crossing paths. And again, to share specific examples and things of how they've been kind of using the whole outsourcing, offshoring world. So give a little background for yourself, Chris.
Sure. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, across from the cornfields, really rural part. I went to James Madison in Southern Virginia and moved up to DC. Got a job at the bank, They laid me off before I started. So I was kind of jobless and had just signed a lease. And my landlord.
You and I shared that exact same story when I did mine. That's how I started my job. I was going to work for an investment bank, and they shut down 2 weeks before I was supposed to start. So been in those
awesome.
shoes.
Yeah. So my landlord was friends with the folks who started District Taco as a food truck. And they said, hey, why don't you go get a job just as a cashier and keep paying us rent? So I said, sure. And that was in 15 years ago. So I was the general manager of the first store, director of operations, CFO, COO, and then most recently president. So I've been with the company for 15 years. They started about 15 and a half years ago, and just as a food truck. Now we've got 18 restaurants, and we started franchising a couple years ago. So we've got 5 franchise stores open. And then we've got about 70 more in the franchise pipeline. We've got 4 under construction currently. So by the end of this year, we'll be in, I think it's 8 states plus the District of Columbia. We're expanding into the Florida market, West Virginia, New York, and kind of all over the place. So trying to grow quickly and using franchising as that vehicle.
Fantastic. And I see the president title. When did the president transition happen for you?
Right around the time I joined YPO.
Fantastic. So you've been with them kind of from the outset. So just kind of share Chris's background here, and then District Taco is a brand. So kind of what's the positioning? Kind of share with everybody as far as the model with District Taco and kind of what you're doing and differentiating kind of your place in the market, and particularly how you're trying to appeal to to franchisees as the model is structured.
Sure. Yeah. We so our founder, Osiris Hoyle, was born and raised in Mexico in the Yucatan region, kind of probably 2-3 hours from Cancun, but in a very rural area. And he just kind of felt like he got laid off from his construction job in 2008 and started this food truck just to keep feeding his family. And I think the thing that differentiates us is definitely the flavors from that region. And I think our flavors are a lot more authentic than a lot of other brands like Chipotle, Moe's, Qdoba, those kind of places. They all do burritos pretty well and bowls pretty well, but we haven't. I really feel like there's a gap in the market in terms of the taco, and that's what we do best. I think 45% of our sales or so are from tacos. It's our best-selling item, and I just I spent a week in Mexico City last month, just doing market research. I was there for a wedding, but I ate nothing but tacos. And
so much so your values spell taco. So you guys are like fully on brand across the board.
Yeah.
Tenacious, authentic, caring, and optimistic. I love it.
Yeah. So I really just think that we do tacos, authentic Mexican style tacos, especially from the Yucatan, really well. And that's our bread and butter. We also serve breakfast, which is not common among other chains.
Yeah.
And we've got like a grilled fish taco that's pretty healthy. We're really moving, one of our biggest long-term missions is to kind of move away from these like ultra processed foods, and to make as many things in-house as we possibly can. So we make our salsas in-house every day fresh. That's not true of any of those other chains I mentioned. We're cutting all of our produce fresh every day. There's just a level of freshness and authenticity that I really feel like you can't get anywhere else.
And that's where everybody, fresh ingredients more than ever. People are looking for that kind of like, farm to table type of experience. And my family, die hard, Tex-Mex and Mexican and tacos. Actually had them last night. So but you can tell a difference. A place called Bar Taco, kind of local to us here in Atlanta. And, for that exact reason is kind of what draws us, is kind of the freshness of it. Awesome. Well, thanks for kind of sharing the background. And obviously things are going well and taking off. So when you talk about the thing about the world, and when you heard me speak, I think for a webinar event for one of the, from the IPO kind of webinar events. So sitting in your role where you are from a COO standpoint, what was sort of the constraint point that you were kind of navigating sort of initially that made you even kind of consider this path? And what were some of the concerns that you had kind of going into it, and how kind of has that been on the other side, and kind of what your journey's been?
Yeah, I mean, we had kind of toyed around with the idea of outsourcing, and we've done it a little bit for some of the more technical software positions. We develop a lot of our software in-house, and we had some success there, and we wanted to really start to look at possibly utilizing that benefit outside of just the software stuff. I feel like, with COVID, and this is, everybody knows this, but like the job market changed, and the access to talent, people started really paying attention to the global market instead of just the local market. And we really want to take advantage of that. I think there's huge opportunities there that are still existing. So, we've had, a few people leave or wash out over the past few years, and we've replaced them with outsourced folks from you guys. And, things have been going great. I think the biggest hesitations that we had, we were concerned about just, the first position we hired for was for like a catering manager, or a kind of a catering manager, community manager position, where this person would be responding to catering inquiries, and also working with customer service requests, and working with like reviews, and kind of keeping an eye on Reddit and all these other communities. So we were concerned about, just relevant experience and the quality of a candidate. But, so far the person we've hired has been doing a great job. And she's really fit in with the team, and is, we've got her in our Slack. She's got a district taco email, and she's basically part of the team at this point. The other thing we were concerned about is language barrier. And, she communicates perfectly in English, and I don't think that's even been an issue at all. The other thing, like, I was thinking about this today with ChatGPT and all the AI tools that everyone has, it's even less relevant when so much of our communication is happening in writing. So that's been, another thing that we've gotten past and worked through. I think that the third concern that we had was just with the time difference of some of the candidates. But she has adjusted her schedule to work in our hours, and we actually found, we had asked her, hey, do you think you can start a little bit later? Because we wanted some coverage kind of like after the workday, outside of the 9 to 5. So we're splitting her time, and we pushed her schedule a little bit later, and it works better for her anyway. So, all of these things were concerns of ours that we've definitely worked past, and have seen great success so far.
Yeah, those are, a lot of the ones that we've, kind of heard. And myself, when I went down this path and launching Outsource Access, being an entrepreneur for, 25 years, my entire life, and, building different companies. And when I started using, offshore resources to kind of grow our business, that was the same. What about time zones? What about competency? What about language barriers? And, particularly, when we chose the Philippines, because there's, you don't have the barrier there, right? Because English is their second language. Americanized kind of culture. So you don't have the gap there that you do kind of with other countries. And that's, been a big element, everything from like what you're sharing. And, we got a big turf care company we work with, that our staff literally from the Philippines is the one that calls all their residential customers and says, hey, Chris, we just sprayed your yard today. It looks like, you have a fungicide treatment you may need, and you would never know. So it ends up being not as much of some have a slight accent, but others, just kind of depending on the voice work that they're doing in the process. So, and so you mentioned, and so I appreciate you kind of referencing the idea of being a part of the team, because that's part of the objective. And again, we have the honor to support you guys here at Outsource Access, but overall this podcast, it's about just being an advocate, for this path, whether it's us or any other company. We just encourage people to go down this journey, and just to understand, we're kind of beyond this top of funnel. Does it exist? The question is, how does it actually work and integrate? And a lot of people they're really surprised by that it's like they can work side by side. People think when they think of offshoring and outsourcing, it's like this third party vendor arm's length, but they don't see them as like being a part of their actual, team, working side by side, with them. And so that's really a big mindset shift of how this can kind of work. And you guys chose kind of the catering as an entry point. And so for a lot of people that are in the food business, catering is a huge opportunity for sales. In terms of, certainly kind of brick and mortar, and then kind of mobile operations. So if you could unpack kind of specifically, what were some of the things you had her jump into? Because as you know, that 2-question exercise I talk about, a lot of our entry point with businesses are things either that people are looking to get off their plate or things that they're not able to get to due to constraints. So when you guys looked at where the struggles were with the catering, business and opportunity, what were those specific issues? And then if you can care any specific task that kind of she was doing to really advance on the catering side for you.
Yeah, I think we took a little bit more of a simplistic view, and really, I think the most important thing for us was just simply execution and being responsive to customers, really thinking outside the box and how we can solve customers' problems, and just presenting the catering product in a way that meets customer expectations. So in that sense, I mean, like you mentioned, catering being a big opportunity for restaurants. I was looking at some numbers earlier today, and year over year for July, our catering sales are up 35% for same store, just in dollar terms. And as a percentage of revenue, we went from 6.1% to 7.5%. And then, that's on top of like our same store sales growth last week was almost up 10%. So like, I think that our ability to execute and to have great employees and great representatives that are fulfilling customers' needs and being responsive, and giving clear responses and just helping people with their problems, I think is essential. And it's really showing up in the way that our numbers and our sales are growing.
So it's really being able to just present the catering capabilities, in the right kind of way and being responsive to opportunities. And I was actually trying to grab, to the point of you talking about integration. When we talk about, we like to show kind of the org chart sometimes, right? Of like how people can kind of plug in support, in the integration. So, reporting directly to the team sort of internally is how you guys have it structured here.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of see the process of how it kind of works, kind of side by side within the journey. And yeah, to the point of process, right, and presenting it appropriately and being able to kind of respond. People have heard us share this kind of perspective on it. It's about being able to follow detail and execute. And you guys, I know, like part of what we try to do. And again, if you ever go down this path with any kind of company, it's being able to document all the processes appropriately. And so kind of sharing an example. I mean, this is kind of like what we try to do, like anytime we're working. This is a sample one, not the live information, but Chris and their team have this exact same thing, which is a live playbook where we are documenting. So this is a sample one, all the confidential information kind of coming out of here, but for like a mortgage firm, but it's just documenting in detail all the work that's being done and executing, and then making sure that there's like a good onboarding process and integration, because even if you're using somebody offshore, there's got to be a good game plan and integration. So try to create a granular 90-day kind of onboarding integration process to make sure that, for the client side, that their team is clear about how to kind of put their hands on the wheel, and then making sure we're getting our people kind of trained and integrated appropriately so it can kind of be effective. And then making sure this playbook and, the clients own it from day one, just like you guys have, all the processes and protocols that are being executed. And so if ever needs to be replacement or what have you, we've got all it documented. And so hopefully it's been helpful with you guys being able to document, because a lot of times, with our clients, in terms of their process, getting it institutionalized so that knowledge is kind of there and documented and kind of written down in the process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you can probably relate. I know you've grown a couple of businesses, but we're kind of in the stage now where we had a few jack of all trades, and we've kind of progressed into, there's just the volume of work is such that we need to specialize, and we need to have people kind of running a department. We've got supply chain, we've got construction, we've got real estate, we've got accounting, and we've got catering, marketing. A lot of these disciplines are sort of like a one-person department. So it's, whenever there's turnover there, it can be kind of chaotic trying to bring the new person up to speed. But having that process and that documentation, I think, really helped us establish some SOPs to just give us peace of mind, if there were to be some turnover in the future in those departments. It's great to have that.
I mean, that's what everybody loves doing every day, is waking up and documenting processes. It's always the But a lot of times in businesses, whether it's franchise or otherwise, that's what we find with a lot of clients is that, at the end of the day, we can't do our work without. I mean, I can't imagine not doing it, but a lot of businesses don't necessarily have things fully documented just because they're growing fast and there's not enough time. And a lot of knowledge is just sitting in people's heads in the business. And if that person leaves or something happens, like they're kind of stuck, that institutional knowledge. So like, that's why, from day one, that playbook is something we're fanatical about to make sure we're getting everything documented and, detailed out so that, for multiple reasons. I mean, it's what we need to do to learn how to execute the process, but to create the redundancy that if we did need to replace someone, or honestly, it just helps a lot of times clients to think out their processes because sometimes they haven't really kind of put it all on paper. So it kind of formalizes the approach with it. So, well, that's great to hear. And I think, one of the software applications that's being utilized. So I know kind of the catering side, and then kind of recently kind of doing the accounting and bookkeeping side is kind of another opportunity to be able to support you guys. That's a more recent one that we've been supporting.
Yep, that's correct.
And as far as a lot of times, a lot of clients, whether it's in whatever the industry, there's software that ends up running, the business runs on. I mean, all of our businesses, whether it's, HubSpot or in the home and commercial services, it's Service Titan and so forth. So I think you guys use Restaurant 365. I think it's one of those software applications. So hopefully that's a big part of where we'll be able to help is, a lot of times it doesn't make a difference which software application it is, but in most businesses, it's getting used at about 20% of the capability just because the people that are doing it have got a million other jobs. And then if there's ever turnover, that person leaves and then you're having to train somebody new in it. And then the other thing is, these software applications are always introducing new features and capabilities, but a lot of companies don't take advantage of it because they're barely, utilizing the baseline, features. I had another guest that's in a franchise space called Dreamland Barbecue. And that's actually, our staff just went through the full training utilization of Restaurant 365 to help with their inventory management and their accounting. How do you guys kind of see the software utilization and something like a Restaurant 365 as being critical to kind of your growth? And, hopefully that'll be a part we can kind of support you guys in.
Yeah, I think, we've been with Restaurant 365 for 6 years now. And we use quite a bit of their software. I think my take on it is accounting is kind of a universal language that works everywhere. And if you get the right person, it is kind of intuitive for them. And I think that's definitely been true for our staff that we've got working on it. Like if you bring in the right person, they're able to figure it out very easily, and they just kind of understand how accounting fits. It may just be, through a different lens. And she's picked it up very quickly and is already, doing cash audits and helping with inventory and things like that. So it's been great so far.
Yeah, accounting can be, it is good. It is one of those universal languages regardless of businesses. You got to have debits and credits and managing it. But, particularly in your industry, there's another layer there in terms of inventory management, and then also all the, the delivery services, the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes, because all of them kind of integrate differently into those applications. And I know, like when I had Betsy on that kind of has the big barbecue chain, that was one of the areas was being able to do reconciliation as it relates to all those different, delivery services. Do you guys run into any of that as part of the delivery services that are being utilized and how that integrates into the platform?
Definitely. We actually use a third party to help us with that called DeliverSense. And they help with some of the journal entries, and then we just verify those and drop them in. But yeah, I mean, restaurants, like a lot of accounting software is built for, having 10 customers or 20 customers or single projects, whereas we get just hundreds and hundreds of deposits. And the scope of those has just exploded recently. You've got Uber Eats, DoorDash, Caviar, Postmates, and then now the catering ones are coming out. You've got like Easy Cater, and there's the traditional Visa and MasterCard, Discover, Amex, Cash, and just the level and the explosion of different income streams that we're getting every day has been pretty hard to manage, but it's doable. It just requires like I said, I think it just requires the right person who has good attention to detail and finding the right partners like Restaurant 365 and some of the others.
Yeah, they're adding, and Pop Menu is another one. We got a client that's, I don't know if you guys use Pop Menu. That's kind of another application But it's yeah, it's another layer. Not having been in the restaurant business in the past and just seeing the complexities around, those different applications that plug in, and auditing and making sure the data is accurate too, kind of when it comes in. I know it can be, challenging in that process. So, well, that's fantastic. I'm glad we've been able to kind of support both, the catering side and being able to maximize the capabilities and making sure it's being properly, presented to clients, when it kind of comes inbound and how they're kind of, responding. Because she's actually responding and helping get back to people that are interested in catering needs and requirements across, like supporting across multiple locations and kind of being able to feed those to the proper locations. And to be able to get a kind of Google reviews and posts, because it's like you said, what was the number you said? It's up, what, 30-something percent from a catering standpoint?
Up, yeah, dollar for dollar, catering's up same store sales by 35% year over year. So
that's fantastic. Well, hopefully it's especially having the food truck business. I mean, I know we just had a big, welcoming party for my kid's school, and that's what was in the driveway. It was a big taco truck, so I know it can be a big part of it. And then the accounting and finance side, that's a big area where we've done a ton of support, and it's a lot of opportunity for scale and helping to get all that detail done properly, because I know it can kind of be challenging in the process. So, well, awesome, Chris. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate your time to kind of dig in and kind of share your journey, and congratulations. I mean, to kind of be there from the beginning and kind of go all the way through to being in the president and COO role is tremendous. And so just remind everybody, so how many current total locations are open and running?
So we've got 18 open currently, and then we've got 4 more under construction. So we'll be at 22 by the end of the year.
And what's kind of the 2 to 3 year kind of horizon target for you guys?
We'd like to keep opening probably 5, 8, 10, increasing from there. I don't think we're not really interested in hitting this like exponential growth curve that a lot of these places do, because we've just seen so many lose control and just kind of spin out of control. So I think we've always been very cautious about our growth, but we will escalate the pace. So we're big picture. We'd like to be around just above 100 stores by the end of 2030. So,
well, I appreciate that steady growth. Because in this industry, and having seen a lot in the franchise space, or even outside of it, you start doing that hockey stick growth, and that's a lot of the negative stigma sometimes in some of the franchise, world, is a lot of times there's the turnkey playbook, and companies get aggressive about trying to launch and, attracting the eyes of private equity and so forth. And they kind of lose sight of, like, ultimately this is about providing a path of entrepreneurship for success for somebody that hasn't been in that path before a lot of times, and giving them, the playbook, but giving them the right support and infrastructure. I was just interviewing the other day, another one that, companies sold, hundreds and hundreds of locations, but very, very, I think they had less than 15% of them opened just because of not having that proper infrastructure. So I appreciate you guys taking a path of steady, sustainable growth. And from a COO standpoint, that makes your life a lot easier when you have a CEO. I'm sure that kind of is aligned with that mindset. So, well, anybody that's listening that is looking to pursue the world of kind of franchising and kind of being a franchisee, or if you are in the franchise ecosystem and looking for an opportunity, I'm sure corporately there's opportunity perhaps with District Taco. As you heard kind of what their growth and plan is. But if you're a franchisee, go to districttaco.com, as I was showing kind of earlier, and kind of see their whole story and background, and kind of click on the franchising link there, and kind of see if there's an opportunity to kind of explore it. And on our end, as I kind of alluded to a little bit, depending on where you are in the whole path of outsourcing and exploring it, it really starts, first of all, before any of that, with getting clarity on sort of what your constraints are and what you're navigating. So for anybody that's listening, if you'll just shoot an email to tools@outsourceaccess.com, and you just put District Taco in the subject line, so we kind of know where it came from the episode. But we'll send you a link to this fantastic kind of just simple 2-question exercise template we created. It's based in a Google Doc, and we'll send you kind of a PDF explanation as well. But it's got 4 little tabs here, and the first one you can click on, it's just a little video, because at the end of the day, when it comes to leveraging growth, regardless of outsourcing or automation or AI, when you're trying to grow, typically the biggest constraints are either people are doing things that aren't the best use of their time, and they're being bogged down, they're not able to add the most value to the organization, or secondly, there's just things that the organization can't get to due to time, money, or knowledge constraints. And really, it's about getting clarity of what those are. So we created this little 2-question exercise template you can kind of go through. And we've actually got, we've done over 4 million hours worth of work in our 6 years at Outsource Access across 80 different industries. And we've taken the top 700 tasks that we see recurring, and we put them here in this master list. So you can kind of scroll through this and organize by marketing, operations, customer service, sales. It'll give you an idea. This is literally word for word without any confidential information from playbooks of things that we've done to kind of see exactly what is the type of work that we're doing. So as you're scrolling through, it may not be your exact industry, but you can see the types of work that's being done. And, where are these constraints in the organization? Either things that people need off of their plates or things that you're not getting to in the organization that can add meaningful dollar and impact. And then I got an example of a completed 2-question exercise here, where, you basically just take these 2 questions, right? Which is, what are you currently doing that you don't feel is the best use of your time? List it, and how many hours per month are you spending on it? And that's a key element to that is, a lot of people, when they go through this exercise, like, yeah, I do that, but that doesn't take that much time and so forth. But people really put a pencil to it. It's amazing how many hours things add up to. And it gives your people voice, right? Because a lot of times they've never been asked that question. And then secondly, you ask, what are things on the radar that you want to be doing or you think that the organization should be doing to add value, but you're not due to time, money, or knowledge? And you take those 2 simple questions. We've had people that are solo businesses do it, but then, we got a 80 location pharmacy, in Wisconsin we're working with, sent those 2 questions to their key managers. And this is actually a live completed one that literally lists every single thing that was, dumped by these managers. And the owner's like, John, you've been with me for 7 years. You got 28 items on this list. Why did you never tell me? Well, you never really asked me. So back to the point of it starts here of understanding what are the constraint points of your people and things you're not getting to. And this kind of creates an incredible roadmap of kind of where you can begin with the journey of getting things off or getting things like, Chris was talking to in the catering side and on the accounting and bookkeeping side. So shoot an email to tools@outsourceaccess.com and put District Taco in the subject line. We'll send that link to and a bunch of other resources that you can kind of check out. And you just go visit us, outsourceaccess.com, ton of videos and content there. We can kind of educate and share what this journey is about. So thanks, Chris. I appreciate kind of sharing your personal journey. Thanks for the opportunity to kind of explore this path, with us. There's a bunch of great companies out there. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and sharing, your constraints. And, hope you guys are, on target, be able to hit those numbers. We'll look in 20, 30, 100 locations. So I'll put it on my calendar to check back in with you and see where you guys stand in that process.
Cool. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Evan, thanks so much. Appreciate it. DistrictTaco.com. Go check them out, guys. Take care.